Jai Hind and welcome all the students, teachers, parents, elders, everyone watching this video right now on my YouTube channel. I learn from YouTube. So before going into the video, I would like to request everyone to subscribe to the channel because you guys know that I'll be posting new content almost each and every day. So the content will be basically on English and English grammar. We'll take care of the fluency, we'll take care of comprehension, we'll take care of writing skills, reading skills, listening skills, each and every aspect. So make sure you guys subscribe and hit the bell notification on. So let's go into the chapter, and today we are going to discuss about modal verbs. So what are modal verbs? Modal or modal auxiliary verbs. We are going to study about the definition, structure, groups, and perfect modals. These are the four categories that we are going to study today. Alright, so let's take a look at some of the example over here so that it becomes easier for you to understand what it actually means. Point number one, they are part of the verbal phrase. Number two, they always accompany, assist, or help other verbs. Number three, they add some abstract meanings like obligation, permission, advice, etc. So you can see the box right between the sentence and it's blank. So modal verbs, how do we fit modal verbs in there? They are part of the verbal phrase. So let's add a modal verb over there and then make it a part of the sentence. So we can say I could reach there before 7 o'clock, or I will reach there before 7 o'clock, or I could have reached over there before 7 o'clock, or I could have been over there before 7 o'clock. So we are using all modal verbs that, not all, some of the modal verbs over here, and they are becoming a part of the phrase. That means if you take out the modal verbs out of that sentence, then the sentence won't make any sense. So basically, modal verbs, what they do is they give meaning to the sentence. They are a part of the sentence. It's important. They always accompany, assist, or help other verbs. So modal verbs not only make the sentence whole, it also gives sense to the sentence, and then they denote usually obligation, permission, advice, order, statement, all that. जो मोडल वर्ब्स होता है वो सेंटेंस का एक इंटीग्रल पार्ट बन जाता है. अगर वो मोडल वर्ब को सेंटेंस से रिमूव किया गया तो वो सेंटेंस बेसिकली सेंसलेस हो जाता है and it becomes obsolete. It won't have any meaning. और modal verbs क्या करता है, वो किसी और verb को भी help करता है explain करने में. So if there is more than one verb in the sentence, what modal verb does is it helps to explain the importance of the other verb that is in the sentence. We will take a look at this kind of sentences, but let's go to the next slide first. Now let's take a look at some of the modal verbs. You can see over there can, could, be able to, must, have to, need, should, ought to, may, might, and many more. There are so many modal verbs, and these are the common examples of modal verbs. Now let's talk about the structure, how modal verbs is written, where it needs to be written, and how does it function. So how do we use modal verbs? Now there are three aspects in this. One is affirmative, other one is negative, and the last one is interrogative. So three kind of sentences. Affirmative means positive sentences. That means someone is agreeing to something. Affirmative means कि वो मान रहा है कुछ. Okay, या मैं या जो भी sentence में है वो positively मान रहा है. Negative, what it means is not accepting the sentence or not accepting what is being asked in the sentence. Interrogative होता है जब आप किसी को क्वेश्चन करते हैं कि कोई स्टेटमेंट को आप क्वेश्चन में चेंज कर देंगे तो दैट विल बिकम इंटरोगेटिव. Just take a look at the example. Affirmative, subject modal infinitive. Negative, subject modal n hyphen t, sorry, not hyphen, n inverted comma and t. You can see that over there, plus infinitive. That modal and nt in the bracket, what does it signify? It signifies the negative aspect of the sentence. Now, when it turns out to be interrogative, you will add a question mark, modal plus subject plus information or infinitive. You can see, why should she stay? After stay, we can see there's a question mark. Why should? Should is the modal verb. Subject, here the subject is she and the infinitive is stay. So this is a proper modal verb structure sentence. In the affirmative also, she should stay, उसको रहना चाहिए, positive sentence. Negative, she shouldn't stay or she should not stay, a negative sentence. Interrogative, एक question, why should she stay, उसको क्यों रुकना चाहिए. So you can see all these kind of sentences and how we have structured three different aspects of modal verbs, how we use modal verbs. Now let's go to number 2. Modal verbs are used with infinitives without to, bare infinitives with the exception of ought to. मॉडल वर्ब के बाद में जो टू यूज़ होता है वो वेरी रेयर केसेस में होता है. इट्स एक्सट्रीमली रेयर, बट देयर इज वन एक्सेप्शन, ought to. When we are saying ought to in a sentence, we cannot separate ought and to. ought to हमेशा साथ में आता है, even if it's a modal verb. So this is an exception because we cannot separate. I told you already, we can't separate ought and to. So look at the example. We must get there before 7 o'clock. She should study harder. I ought to go home now. Even if it's a modal verb, we are using to because we can't separate that. I already told you about that. So I ought to go home now. मुझे अब घर जाना चाहिए. That is what the sentence is saying. Have to is studied with modal verbs, but it's not a pure modal verb as it needs auxiliary verbs. अब इसके जगह में have to भी एक modal verb. have में कैसे to लग गया? Then it's a different case. ऐसे for example, I have to go home now. वो भी एक complete sentence or it makes sense, right? The sentence is right. I have to go home now. It is correct. But we don't take this as pure modal verb. Pure modal verb वही होता है जिसके आगे to नहीं लगता है. और जो भी वर्ब होता है जो मॉडल वर्ब है और वो किसी दूसरा वर्ब का मदद ले रहा है सेंटेंस में, तब वो प्योर मॉडल वर्ब नहीं होगा. वो होगा एक नॉर्मल मॉडल एक्सिलरी वर्ब, नॉट अ प्योर मॉडल वर्ब. सो ऐसे ही ought to, have to जिसके बाद to लगता है, दे आर नॉट अ प्योर फॉर्म ऑफ मॉडल वर्ब. नेक्स्ट वन, modal verbs do not add s or es to the third person singular. They are invariable verbs. So जो भी modal verbs हमने पढ़ा है अभी तक, उसमें से किसी में भी s और es का यूज़ नहीं होता है. Take a look at the example. He can swim. We can't say he can swim. That's wrong. We can't say she can swim. That's also wrong. They can swim. That's also wrong. So the right form is he can swim, she can swim, he can do his homework, she can do his homework and all. So in non-modal, what will it be? It's he wants to swim. Want is a verb. We add s to it and it's a non-modal verb. Wants to swim. Want एक modal verb नहीं है, इसीलिए उसके बाद में s लग रहा है. अगर वो एक modal verb होता है जैसे should, तो उसमें s नहीं लगता. दैट इज़ द डिफरेंस. मॉडल वर्ब्स के पीछे कभी भी es या s नहीं लगेगा. नाउ पॉइंट नंबर 4, दे डोंट नीड ऑक्सिलरीज टू फॉर्म शॉर्ट आंसर्स और नेगेटिव एंड इंटेरोगेटिव सेंटेंसेस. मॉडल वर्ब्स को किसी और ऑक्सिलरी वर्ब की ज़रूरत नहीं है. किसी भी सेंटेंस को शॉर्ट आंसर, नेगेटिव नेगेटिव द वन वी टॉक्ड अबाउट बिफोर, एंड इंटरोगेटिव उसको एक क्वेश्चन बनाने में या उसको एक नेगेटिव सेंटेंस बनाने में हमको कोई भी वर्ब का हेल्प नहीं लेगा अगर हम मॉडल वर्ब्स का यूज़ कर रहे हैं. टेक लुक एट द एग्जाम्पल. शी शुडंट ईट सॉल्ट. We are making the sentence negative. Should not eat. That means it's a negative sentence. लेकिन हम उसको ऐसे तो नहीं बोल सकते. She doesn't should eat salt. That's completely wrong. So the purpose of inserting modal verb here is it's a part of the sentence and it makes absolute sense. So that is why we are using it. Same case. May I help you? Yes, you may. The right sentence. Do I may help you? Yes, you do. That is sounding like, incorrect, drastically incorrect grammar. So we don't use these kind of sentences. We need short ones. May I help you? Yes, you may. That's it. And it's grammatically correct. And number 5 is they do not have infinitives or ing forms like can, canning, should, shoulding. It's laughable because we don't use ing and all that in modal verbs. Just remember that. Modal verbs do not have all the tenses. They use other verbs to complete the tenses like present, past, future tense and all. Modal verb, how does it work? Let's take a look. Can, could or be able to. They can swim now. She will be able to swim next year. So now in these sentences the verb, the helping verb is determining the time. वो टाइम बता रहा है क्या वो पास्ट टेंस में या प्रेजेंट टेंस में या फ्यूचर टेंस में. They can swim now. Can is considered over here in the present form. And she will be able to swim next year. That means the use of will. So it's in future term. So we can say it's future tense. So the words that are helping over here are called auxiliary verbs, जो भी modal verb को time denote करने में help करते हैं. And another example, must or had to. You must come early, or you had to come early yesterday. You must come early is different from you had to come early yesterday because it's totally in the past. That means yesterday or the day that's mentioned in the sentence, उस दिन को वो late आया था. That is why the person is saying you had to come early yesterday. That means in the past tense. And you must come early, it denotes the current and the future tense. Now group of modal verbs. Let's take a look at this. We are going to study them from 2 points of view. A. Number of meanings or concepts that they express, single or double. Modal verbs, there are some of the words which denote more than one meaning. So उसको हम break down करेंगे दो concept में. एक single words जो single meaning देते हैं और दूसरा double जो modal verbs एक से ज़्यादा meaning देते हैं हम उस sentence पे use करते वक्त. We will take care of that with the help of example, don't worry. For now, let's take a look at B. Modal meanings that they express: permission, ability, obligation. Now second aspect जिसमें हम divide कर रहे हैं वो है the ability to express, the obligation, the permission. वो sentence में जो modal verb use हो रहा है वो क्या denote कर रहा है? She can go. If I say she can go, it is a kind of permission granted. She can. So can का मतलब यहाँ होता है कि हम उसको permission grant कर रहे हैं. Okay. She can do it. That means she can का मतलब अब हो गया कि वो उसका ability discuss कर रहे हैं कि वो काम कर सकती है या कर सकता है. Let's move forward. Number of meanings. Now the first aspect. The same modal verb can have different meanings depending on the context. May I come in? It may rain tomorrow. Now these are two different sentences with the exact same modal verb. Now let's take a look at what the difference is in between two sentences. Single concept modals. This modal verbs have one meaning, and double concept modals have two meanings. So may I come in? May I is used over here as permission, and it may rain tomorrow. इस सेंटेंस में मे का यूज़ हो रहा है किसमें? प्रेडिक्शन में, फ्यूचर में शायद कल रेन होगा, बारिश होगा. एंड फर्स्ट इज मे आई कम इन, क्या मैं अंदर आ सकता हूँ. सो मे इज एग्जैक्टली द सेम बट यूज्ड इन डिफरेंट कॉन्टेक्स्ट. सो द मीनिंग ऑफ मे हैज़ double concept modals. That means they have two meanings. Single concept will, might, should. ये तीन जो वर्ड है, जो मॉडल वर्ब है, ये खाली सिंगल कॉन्सेप्ट में होते हैं. और डबल कॉन्सेप्ट में जो वर्ड्स है वो है मे, मस्ट, वुड, कैन और कुड. सो दीज आर द वर्ड्स दैट हैव मोर देन वन कॉन्सेप्ट. दैट मीन्स उस वर्ड को अगर हम यूज़ करते हैं तो उसका एक से ज़्यादा मीनिंग निकलता है. नाउ मॉडल कॉन्सेप्ट एंड एग्जाम्पल फॉर दी सिंगल कॉन्सेप्ट मॉडल. जो सिंगल कॉन्सेप्ट वर्ड्स थे उनका एक ही एग्जाम्पल और एक ही रीज़न होता है, आई मीन एक ही एक्सप्लेनेशन. सो इस वर्ड का क्या मीनिंग है? मॉडल इज विल, कॉन्सेप्ट इज फ्यूचर. Peter will visit London someday. He might see Big Ben. He should wear comfortable. Alright, so let's take a look at the group of modal verbs. Modal verbs express a series of modal meanings like ability, obligation, prohibition, necessity, advice, possibility, and certainty. So all these words that you can see over here, it can be represented by modal verbs. Now how we can use modal verbs to determine these abilities or these obligations or whatever it is, let's take a look at that. Now first one is ability. Ability का मीनिंग यहाँ पे दो मीनिंग होगा. In present can and in past it's could. Two of my friends can play the guitar. When he was a child he could ski well. Now present form, my friends can play the guitar. That means वो अभी भी play कर सकते हैं. But in the past tense what we have is when he was a child he could ski well. That means जब वो एक छोटा बच्चा था तब वो अच्छी तरह से स्की कर लेता था. But now he is not doing that. Next one, next week they'll able to vote. We haven't been able to go on holiday this year. We would be able to do it. Number one, future. Two, present perfect. And three, conditional. So it also determines ability. ये modal verb जो भी है वो क्या कर रहे हैं इस सेंटेंस में? ये सेंटेंस में ability शो कर रहे हैं. फर्स्ट वन में be able to. They'll be able to vote in future. जब फ्यूचर में वो not in future, next week also is future, but still it's not that far. So what we are saying is next week they'll be able to vote. That means next week जब वो 18 क्रॉस करेंगे और whatever the legal age is उसके साथ वो वोट कर सकते हैं. We haven't been able to go on holiday this year. Ability यहाँ पे क्या हुआ? Haven't been able to. That means हम नहीं जा सके. Third one, would be able to do it. We would be able to do it. That means हम ये कर सकते हैं. Abilities, again showing ability. Now obligation. What is obligation? Obligation means that you are obliged to do something for someone else. आपको वो काम किसी और के लिए करना है. Applicants must answer the questions honestly. Modal verb का first one में meaning हुआ कि applicants को ये करना ही है. Must. It's what does it sound like? Is it like a question or is it like an interrogation or is it a statement? What is it? Okay, so it's a statement that's given. Applicants must answer the questions honestly. Other tenses including present when you are using have to. I have to study hard this year. I will have to work hard as a lawyer. I have had to stay at home lately. So I have to study hard this year. वो एक ऑब्लिगेशन है, वो आपको करना ही है, क्योंकि अगर आपको पास होना है then it is very important that you have to study. I will have to work hard as a lawyer. ये भी एक ऑब्लिगेशन किस चीज़ के लिए? एक सक्सेसफुल लॉयर बनने के लिए आपको वो करना ही है. दैट इज़ एन ऑब्लिगेशन. I have had to stay at home lately. दैट इज़ ऑल्सो वन ऑब्लिगेशन कि आपको अपने घर में ही रहना पड़ रहा था और पड़ रहा है. दैट इज़ एन ऑब्लिगेशन. Prohibition. Now what prohibition means is stopping someone or not allowing someone to do something. You must not eat too many sweets, or you mustn't cheat in exams. It's must not, or you can also say mustn't, whatever you feel comfortable with. So we'll go with must not. Prohibition. You must not eat too many sweets. Someone is saying आपको इतना ज़्यादा मिठाई नहीं खाना चाहिए. That means it's a prohibition. You are not allowed to eat so much sweets. Again, you must not cheat in exams. Prohibition. एक रूल है, आप एग्ज़ाम में चीट नहीं कर सकते. That means it's not allowed. Now necessary and not necessary. ये डिटरमाइन करने के लिए भी मॉडल वर्ब कैसे यूज़ करते हैं. Let's take a look. Affirmative. Need to. हमको इसका बहुत ज़रूरत है. Affirmative means positive. Negative. Need not or needn't. That means no obligation. आप वो कर भी सकते हैं, आप वो नहीं भी कर सकते हैं. कोई भी obligation नहीं है. Interrogative. आप उसी सेंटेंस को एक क्वेश्चन में चेंज कर रहे हैं. Need I do this? क्या मुझे ये करना चाहिए? So that is interrogation. First one, you need to do this to pass the subject. That is necessary. आपको ये करना ही है. Negative, you need not do it. That means आप वो कर भी सकते हैं, नहीं भी कर सकते. Now next one is advice. You can use ought to, should, shouldn't to express advice or recommendation. नाउ मॉडल वर्ब्स इस सेंटेंस में और इस लाइन में किस चीज़ में यूज़ हुआ है? वो एक एडवाइस के रूप में. ऑलराइट. कैंडिडेट्स शुड बी फ्रेंडली. यू शुडंट वरी टू मच अबाउट योर एग्जाम्स. कैंडिडेट्स ऑट टू बी वेरी फ्रेंडली. सो एडवाइस शुड बी वेरी फ्रेंडली. दैट मीन्स वो ये एडवाइस दे रहे हैं कि कैंडिडेट को एक दूसरे के साथ अच्छी तरह से बिहेवियर रखना चाहिए. You shouldn't worry too much about exams. ये भी एक एडवाइस कि आपको एग्ज़ाम के लिए इतना ज़्यादा परेशान नहीं होना पड़ेगा. कैंडिडेट्स ought to be friendly. कैंडिडेट्स जो भी है वो एक दूसरे के साथ फ्रेंडली बिहेवियर करना चाहिए. दैट मीन्स कैंडिडेट्स ought to be friendly. पॉसिबिलिटी हो भी सकता है, नहीं भी हो सकता है. प्रेजेंट एंड फ्यूचर में क्या यूज़ होगा? may not, might, mightn't and could. It may be time for Linda to go. They might choose Danny. They could be on the train. First sentence, it may be time for Linda to go. इस सेंटेंस में may क्या यूज़ कर रहा है? may बता रहा है जो पॉसिबिलिटी है कि लिंडा को अभी जाने का टाइम हो गया. नेक्स्ट, might choose Danny. वो डैनी को चूज़ कर सकता है या चूज़ कर सकती है. दैट मीन्स पॉसिबिलिटी. दे कुड बी ऑन द ट्रेन. कुड बी द मॉडल वर्ब. सो हियर व्हाट कुड मीन्स? कुड मीन्स वो ट्रेन में हो भी सकते हैं. ओके, दे कुड बी ऑन द ट्रेन. वो ट्रेन में हो सकते हैं. व्हेन वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट पास्ट, मे, माइट, कुड हैव प्लस पास्ट परफेक्ट. ही माइट हैव रिसीव्ड अ मैसेज. सो in this case what we have is might have. So might have is followed by a verb, that is received. And what is the subject over here? Subject here is our message. Let's move forward. Certainty or logical डिडक्शन। अब हम किसी चीज़ का सर्टेनिटी मीन्स ये हो रहा है, ये ट्रू है, दैट इज सर्टेनिटी। लॉजिकल मीन्स हम किसी चीज़ को लॉजिक से रिप्रेजेंट कर रहे हैं, हम बोल रहे हैं कि साइंटिफिकली दिस इज़ नॉट करेक्ट और दिस इज़ करेक्ट, वी आर यूजिंग मैथमेटिक्स टू सॉल्व अ प्रॉब्लम, दैट इज़ कॉल्ड लॉजिकल। पॉजिटिव में कैसे यूज़ होगा? इट मस्ट बी क्वाइट लेट बिकॉज इट्स गेटिंग डार्क, क्योंकि अभी बहुत ज़्यादा अंधेरा होने वाला है, दैट मीन्स it must be quite late. When does it start to be late? After you work, let's say after you work you go off at 5 p.m. If you remain in the work for let's say 6 p.m, then you'll start to notice that outside it's getting darker and darker. वो क्या सिग्निफाई करता है? वो सिग्निफाई करता है कि आप आज बहुत लेट काम कर रहे हो, लेट से काम कर रहे हो। ओके, सो दैट इज गिविंग यू अ सर्टेनिटी। नेगेटिव, दैट कांट बी ट्रू, ये सच नहीं हो सकता, कांट और कैन नॉट। So guys, we'll stop over here for today. I hope you guys learned something about it. So for your homework or for your assignment, what I want you to do is you write all the modal verbs that we have discussed in this lecture, and I want all of you to make sentences using the past, present and future tenses, and use all the modal verbs that I have told you to, and make sentences in 3 parts. The first one should be positive, second one should be negative, and third one should be an interrogation. I already gave you the example. Now once more I'll tell you what to do. In positive, he may take the lead, that means वो lead ले सकता है हमारा may। और इसमें नेगेटिव करने के लिए क्या करेंगे हम? he may not take the lead, not का यूज हुआ है, that means it's negative. And question, or in the end part we call it interrogative sentence. For that we can use the example, may he lead us, that's a question at the end, you put a question mark, so may he lead us, क्या वो हमको lead कर सकता है। Likewise you have to write all the words and all the 3 aspects that I've told you. See you guys in next class, and I hope that everyone does the homework or assignment that's been given. Thank you for listening to it. And don't forget to subscribe. I'll be watching you.